Hello everybody, how are you going today? It is so very good to see you today. We are not going to talk about new cameras, old cameras, camera history. We're not going to talk about any of that stuff today. We're going to talk about what you can do with a 50mm lens. And I've got three different eras of 50mm lenses here today. They're all going to be mounted on the Z7 and we're going to be using the F to Z adapter. There it is right there. What a little beauty. We're going to do this on the Z7 with the 50mm 1.8. We're going to be putting the old 50mm, I don't have the 1.8, but I want to test it out with the 50mm 1.4. Can we get a sense of whether the Z version is better, the 1.8 version is better than this? Now this has always been an affordable lens and is actually cheaper. As I was growing up in the photography industry, I was always told 1.4 lenses are better. So you want to get 1.4 lenses. This is an anomaly. I've never done any research on why it's an affordable 1.4. In this country, it's around $700 or $800, whereas the Z50 1.8 is a couple of hundred more. So they're a similar price. I've used this lens very rarely because it doesn't handle ghosting and chromatic aberrations and all that sort of stuff very well. Never really liked it because the quality is not there. So the 50mm Z 1.8 is a far superior lens to this one. That's my experience. I'm going to try and photograph some stuff today. I'm still in lockdown stage 4, so I can't leave my house for anything other than going to the supermarket. So we're going to be stuck around my garden. And as a bonus at the end, I'm going to put two other things on the Z. You want to guess what they are? One's a 50mm. Yes. Anyone guess? I was so fortunate to be lent this gorgeous old 50mm 1.2. So we're going to whack that on there again. Just see optically how it performs, optically how this performs. The 1.4, this obviously has AF, not the greatest AF. This has no AF. And as an extra bonus at the end of this video, we're going to look at this little beauty here. This is a tilt shift lens. That's a bit weird, isn't it? For those who haven't seen these lenses, you might be going, what is going on? Well, it can tilt and it can shift. Let me show you. And this allows for architectural photography. But you can use it to do other cool things. All these three lenses have exactly the same functionality on F as they do on Z, but you do get the added bonus of in-body image stabilization. That's a good thing. That's a bonus. So all these lenses are still fully functioning. Manual, and the AF still works on this one. All right, let's give it all a whirl and hang around to the end to see what a tilt shift looks like. Let's do it. Okay, well, so here is the view. We're looking into the sun and we zoom in and you can see the aberration is significantly smaller, but much smaller, much easier to correct. And we are looking at 100% directly into the sun. We'll quickly go back to this one. Go to 100%, yeah. And you can just see the scale of the fringing is enormous. And you get the green as well. Enormous, completely different outcome. Let's just quickly try on the old 51.2. Right. There it is. Stop it down to 1.8, which is, that'd be 1.4. 1.8 is there. And let's zoom in. And similarly, it's a little, maybe slightly worse than the old G, but they're kind of similar. So that to me is just a fundamental difference. With how these lenses work, I'm going to throw on the tilt shift so you can have a quick look at it. There's the tilt shift. Point that up to the sky, and you can see from the centre everything's in focus. Let's go wide open for it, which is 3.5. But then you can make areas in and out of focus. And if you refocus them, look how they move. So you've got this kind of spooky control where just this centre portion is in focus. Now everybody, would you like me to do more with the tilt shift? We go out and shoot with it. What do you think? I'll show you how you can have selective focus in camera. Juicy and lovely. Way more juicy and lovely than doing it in post. And cooler and more fun. Let me know. Let's go back to the studio. Yeah, so what we're looking at right now is the Z 50mm 1.8S on the Z7. Here it is. Looks pretty good. Let's go into 100%. And still looking pretty good. Yes, there's a very small degree of chromatic aberration and so on. What I'm going to do now, and I'll just show you firstly that I have made no adjustments, 0 adjustments. So this is whatever Capture One does to it, which is probably not very much. This is the 50mm 1.4, came out in 2012. That's a significant difference. Significant difference. If we look here, this leaf is in focus. We look here, I believe this leaf is in focus. So the focus point is similar, but it doesn't really matter which twig you look at out of all of these. That's all over the shop. This is the Z, very different. And we're looking at 100%. Not very obvious when you come out, whereas when you look at the old one, it's still legible at a distance because it's so much larger. Very difficult to clean that up. This is almost non-existent when we're looking on a 5K screen, and you have to go into 100% to see anything, and it's pretty minor. Software like this has purple fringing. Now, I've never really been a massive fan of this stuff. Has that made any difference? I've got it at 100%. Now let's go back to 0. I might have blinked. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if that did anything. And the final one I want to show you is the 50mm 1.2. So the 50mm 1.2 comes with, so just watch here at this point here, it comes with no information. But have a look at how colourful, it's very colourful. So this is the, I think came out in 1978 from my research originally, even so they're still making it today. And I also want you to note down here, well you can't see it, but down here the exposure is the same. I didn't touch any of it. This one's brighter, this one's even brighter, and this one's darker. Here is the Z 1.8 S at 1.8. I got it on sale for like $850, I think. Something like that. Here's the 12-year-old lens. Still costs around $700, so not much difference between them, but that's a disaster area compared to that. And then here's the old lens, which, you know, doesn't fare that differently. It's probably a bit worse though, really, isn't it? Anyway, very interesting test. They still all look sharp, but this wasn't really what I was interested in because I know they're all sharp, but it's just how they look from a color perspective shooting into the sun. Let's do a side-by-side. There's a side-by-side. And we'll zoom in. 100%. It's not really a side-by-side when it's one above the other, but you know what I mean. And we'll find the same area. Just very, very different. So what I did in the setting sun was good, but I decided to make the test even harder into the direct morning sunlight with no clouds. So here it is. Let's have a look. And as we can see here, we have the red. Now what I've done here, like the last one, is I have created a button where I can magnify the image 100%. So we are seeing pixel for pixel on the sensor. Now I was just trying to find the optimal spot. What we're looking at here is into the direct morning sunlight. So this is directly into the sun. No clouds, 100% sunshine. And then I was looking for the optimal spot to set up the camera. So what we can see in the top left of frame is there is the sun, direct sun, and we can see the focus peaking is showing us what's in focus. So this is the 1.8S, and chromatic aberration, fringing, flaring, ghosting is pretty well controlled, considering this could not be much harsher than it is right now, looking directly into the sun. So once we did this, I changed the lens, and we change over to, this is changing the lens now, so that is the sensor looking straight into the sun. That is not something you would want to do very often. And I'm quickly picking up and coupling. Yeah, the AFS Nikon 50mm 1.4G is now on the front of the camera, and it's a 1.4, but to make the test the same, we're making it 1.8. And zooming in here, straight away, we can see there's more green and purple fringing and ghosting and flaring. You can see the contrast is reduced. There is exaggerated flaring. And what we'll do is we'll get these images side by side on the screen a little bit later. So we're shooting at 47 megapixels. This is in at 100% pixel for pixel. We're recording on the Ninja. And the leaf on the right hand side there is, that's fluttering in the wind, is what I was trying to make in focus the same. We're going to look at the old 50mm as well. There's the focus peaking, saying all of that's in focus. Sort of a little bit inaccurate. Better to actually zoom into 100%. You can go to 200%. I found it unnecessarily far. Okay, now we're going to move over to the 50mm 1.2 classic. To the best of my research, it looks like it first came out in 1978. Here goes the 1.2. Okay, there it is. And we are in at 100%. And we can see here flaring and ghosting is at its worst in this lens. And I would say that chromatic aberrations, all the different aberrations, are also at their peak. I don't think anybody should be worried about that. This lens is a very old design, 40 years old. I'm not sure when the actual copy that I have was made because it's still being sold. And it's a 1.2 lens, so it's got its pros and cons. But I think the 50mm 1.2 ZS lens that we're going to see probably in the first half of next year will absolutely blow this out of the water. And I would love to do this test with the Noct. Wouldn't that be interesting? Now, what I did here is I stopped down to f4. You can't see it on the 50mm because the metadata doesn't come through, but we can see the image is darker. And we saw that the chromatic aberration at f4 completely goes away. Now I'm putting the 50mm 1.4 on, and we're going to put it at f4. And well, you'll see in a moment what happens. It's pretty interesting. So watch the f-stops change. There they are down the bottom. 3, 4. Things are darker. And look how changing the aperture changes the chromatic aberration. Obviously less light is coming in. So I thought I'd stop down a bit, and that we were at 2.8. What I'm doing here is jumping between. We've gone back up to f4. Definitely, it's gone. It's gone on the 50mm 1.4G. We're at f4. Now I thought, oh, well, the sun's moved. The sun's moved, so let's get closer to the sun. And even when we look straight into the sun there, now I'm changing the aperture again, so I'm going out to 1.4 here, and, well, fringing increases, flare increases, etc. Now we're at 3.5, and it's pretty much mitigated f4. All right, now we do the same test with the 50mm 1.8 ZS lens. Back straight into the sun, We are now at f4, as we can see down the bottom, f4, and I just run it through a few apertures here. So that looks perfect at f4. There really is no sign of any fringing of anything whatsoever. Now this is wide open, and there is a little bit, but it is not as much as the other two lenses. And then as we stop down, it just completely disappears. Here we are, f4. Again, f4 looks great. Then opening up. It doesn't show while you're in this zoomed in mode on the Ninja, so I have to jump in and out of the 100% magnification, but this would be wide open, 1.8. So let's have a little look side by side, and we're going to look at them both at f4. Here they are both frozen at f4, and they both look very good. Okay, so now we're going to see them both at f1.8. And in this side by side, we can pretty easily see that there's fringing there for the older lens, and the ZS lens looks a hell of a lot cleaner. Look, it's not 100% gone, but this is the most harsh conditions that I could come up with. All right, everybody. Well, you know, that was a bit of fun, wasn't it? And the lenses were quite interesting. Besides the fact that the 50mm 1.4 is 2/3 of a stop faster, and I suppose gives you a little tiny bit more depth of field, the Z 50mm 1.8 is controlling aberration, chromatic aberration, ghosting far better. Now, it doesn't completely remove it, that is true, but it is far more suppressed on this lens. And if you look at the DxO charts, if you're interested in that sort of stuff, you can see that this lens, even so it is far cheaper than so many higher end 50mm, it rates very, very well against it. But there were the two most important things that I wanted to show today is a 50mm, an old f50mm 1.4 is not necessarily better than the new 50mm 1.8, which is what I've been always saying. These Z 1.8 primes really don't have very much to do. They don't have very much in common with the F mount 1.8 primes. They are a different ball game. To get this level of optical quality in an F mount, in a traditional F mount, you have to pay 2, 3, maybe even 4 times the cost. So these lenses make a lot of sense whilst you're gently transitioning over a couple of years from the F mount to the Z mount. So here is a tilt shift lens, looking quite good, looking quite good. That's what a lens looks like normally, doesn't it? Why don't we just make it a bit brighter? Bit brighter, yes, lovely. A bit more saturation, fabulous. Actually, we won't make it brighter, we'll just bring up the shadows a little bit. Ah, gorgeous. Lovely. Fabulous. And then I'll show you what you can do in camera. So here's this lens here. What you're seeing on the side here, this is the tilt, the shift. It's bringing those areas out of focus. And you'll see on the Atomos recording how that all moves around. But you're doing this in camera, and there's lots of really cool effects. So if you guys would be interested in me making a video about the tilt shift, let me know. And I thought while we're here, we can have a quick look. Guess which lens this is? This is the 24-200 VR. I haven't had much opportunity to shoot with it, but there's 100% at 200mm. I deliberately shot into the sun to have a look at chromatic aberration. Well, there it is, 24-200, straight into the sun. We're at 100%. That looks good, doesn't it? I think it does. So it's handling that stuff well. I haven't touched this, by the way. Not touched it. That's how it arrived. Same. Here it is again. Straight into the sun at 115. Straight into the sun at 60. Let's go into 100%. Looking pretty good to me. So that's a great little... We will do a proper one on this one, but, you know, if you're worried about that sort of stuff, well, that's a win. And then here we are, just shooting down a street. I just thought it'd be interesting to see how... Now, this is on the Z6, so less resolution, by the way, to play with. Anyway, that was a little surprise cameo by the 24-200 VR. And the other thing that I wanted to reiterate, of course, is that the adapted lenses work very, very well. You can use all of that old glass, and some of this stuff is really, really old, like this one. You know, it's something like 40 years old, and it still works exactly the same way that it did 40 years ago. And this still works exactly the same way as when it came out. And this lens, for the life of me, I'm trying to remember when I got it. I think it was the early 2000s. Of course, you get that in-body stabilization as a bonus, which means it can work in even more low light. They all can. They can work in better low light, so you can do even more handheld work or whatever you want to do. And all of these mounted on the beautiful Z7. So as always, everybody, it is so fantastic to see you. And if this is your first time here, it is so lovely to meet you. I look forward to seeing you again. So please subscribe. That'd be amazing. Please like, please share. And if you'd like to see over 200 videos right now, you can just click on the Matto and Photography down there. All right. Look after yourselves. And I look forward to seeing you very soon.